The consciousness and the cosmos. A path to one's own inner cosmos, in assistance of the more profound understanding of the current planetary transition. A stimuli that accompanies the pilgrim in his return to his cosmic home. The consciousness and the cosmos. Radio program of Uksim, Planetary Service Center. Hello dear listeners, my name is Jez. We continue with the topic of healers and illnesses.
What do we really understand of the term healer? What is the work of the genuine healer? What do they do? Is a genuine healer a tool of the cosmic will? Does he operate with the law of purification and the law of karma?
Escuela significa un campo de energía preparado para formar seres que provengan tanto de la misma tierra, ¿sí? Quiere decir que van a ser seres que van a estar presentes en la tierra formando parte de esa ceremonia.
Daniel says, school means a field of energy, prepared to form beings from Earth itself. These beings, as well as beings from different galactic sectors, will be present on Earth as a part of this ceremony of instruction, because the Earth will be prepared to offer them learning regarding the law of transmutation. When you talk about the Earth as a school of healers, you are saying it more understandably, because in reality the cure is not the way of naming the energy, which is what is hidden in the cure. In reality, when you talk about the cure on this planet, you are talking about an aspect, a condition of the law of transmutation. The cure by itself on a cosmic level says nothing. Still, by conditions of limitation, it has been transmitted to us, revealed to us, to humanity, to a portion of humanity, that there is a lineage of healers.
What would such a denomination have to look like?
Se lo está diciendo de un modo más entendible, porque en realidad la cura no es la forma de denominar la energía.
Daniel says, a lineage of transmuters. So when you speak of a cure, you speak of transmutation. The cure is a narrow aspect of humanity's understanding of what the law of transmutation really is, and the law of transmutation has gradations. The Earth is going to be a school of transmutation, where both the beings who are present here, some of the beings more than others, because it will depend on their inner relationship with transmutation, will be trained as transmuters, that is, healers, and others will come from other cosmic sectors, because the Earth will have the broad, flexible conditions to operate as a nucleus of irradiation, of transmuting instruction for beings of different solar or cosmic conditions.
What about the work that healers do?
Ahora, mientras los sanadores lo que hacen es intervenir de un modo negativo esa primera etapa de la cura, por lo cual empiezo a tener un desajuste, desarmonía y desequilibrio con la cura.
Daniel continues, the first thing a healer needs to be able to express is that the term healer is misleading. The process is one of healing, because healing can involve the erasure of symptoms, but not the erasure of the origin of the symptom. Generally, in karmic terms, the healer is a symptom eraser who does not have the inner capacity to accompany the ceremony that dissolves the cause. Hence, the healer produces rapid and noticeable effects. However, it is common for individuals treated by healers to repeatedly experience new disease processes, starting a cycle of seeking the healer's assistant for each new issue.
So there is a big difference between a healer and a healer. A healer is a tool of the cosmic will that knows why a being suffers, what he or she suffers in terms of purification karmically, and becomes utilized by the cosmic laws when it's necessary to interrupt the expression of ailment from the source, not from the appearance of the ailment, not from the erasure of the symptom.
Daniel continues. At this moment there is a kind of test that has been badly passed, poorly carried out by several human beings on the surface. There is an abundance, a compulsive, obsessive growth, as if it were a virus, of an immense number of healing therapists, and as if all that they have invented were not enough, every day they invent a new one. The one who invents a new and more picturesque therapy is the one who will charge the best until it becomes commonplace. Generally speaking, we find swindlers who are divided into two categories, or two branches of swindling.
On one hand, we have the one who tricks, believing though astral influence that he is a healer.
El síntoma me evita el contacto con la cura y sin saber empiezo a acumular kármicamente presión. La causa de una dolencia está presente en un dispositivo, una entidad vibratoria que se llama entidad de los átomos permanentes que están en el aura, en el campo energético del alma. El alma tiene un campo vibratorio, un cuerpo causal, la conciencia anímica. Dentro de ese cuerpo causal hay una entidad, un dispositivo trino, ¿sí?, que está regulado por la ley.
Daniel continues. On the other hand, we have the one who, knowing that he is not, puts on a theatre to make money and take advantage of those who are capable of paying anything, as long as he does not do the work of transformation, because the work of the cure is not to stop suffering from the symptom, but to change our attitude toward the illness. The illness has a meaning, and that meaning cannot be attacked. Otherwise, the being is being liberated by his inner consciousness and the law of karma, which impose the illness on him. A being who opens up to the cure does not have to open up to the cure in order to erase a symptom and stop suffering from pain or limitation. A being does not have to be aware of the symptoms. The being has to be aware of its transformation, because the cure is to change our attitude and relationship with the illness. A being who heals is a being who transforms his consciousness. and begins to see the deep background of the illness as a purifying element, then embraces it, adheres to the sense of the presence of the illness, knowing that the illness is consuming, burning the impurities by which it became present. If one seeks to avoid an illness, one is not accepting what the law of karma and one's own monadic consciousness is telling one to transcend, because if a being intervenes in an illness, if the being becomes an intervener of the symptom and overrides it, then the impurities, as karma appropriate, begin to potentiate to such an extent that at some time, when the pressure of those impurities bursts, what he's going to have to live with as an illness is worse.
On what is their understanding of illness and cure based?
Activa la dolencia y comienzo a vivir esto que llamo enfermedad. Si viene un sanador y manipula la expresión, la encapsula, la manipula, la tapona, voy a creer que me curó.
Daniel continues that there is no illness, that the only thing that exists is the first stage of the cure, which we call illness. The cure begins with illness because illness frees us from impurities. The cure manifests itself and externalizes itself in the first stage as if it were an illness. And what we fear is the externalization of the cure, which is the first stage that we call illness. Automatically, a being who understands the cure and understands the law of karma, and who begins to perceive why what happens, ceases to fear the cure. That is the first stage, which the world calls disease, because ignorance makes us name things, to see monsters where there are no monsters. When a being who begins to be touched by the energy of the cure, the first thing that he discovers is that it is not necessary to attack the illness. He or she has to transform himself to be a valid, deep, harmonious receiver of the cure that was operating, and that reveals itself as an illness. That, as I am transformed before that first stage, I will cooperate in self-purification, because I adhere to the presence of the cure under that first appearance that I call illness, and that will have stages, and that in some cases it will accompany me. I will cooperate in the self-purification, because I adhere to the presence of the cure under that first appearance that I call illness. And that will have stages. And then in some cases it will accompany me until I disembody, and I will liberate me when I disembody that cure. I am going to break my attachment to that illness because the cure plans to accompany me in that carnation until I disincarnate. In other stages and in other incarnations and in other cases, the cure can lead to a temporary curve at certain stages that will not lead to me in disincarnation, and that will temporarily free me in that incarnation to continue living, at least with that condition of cure, to be liberated. Now, while the healers intervene negatively in that first stage of the healing, I begin to have a misalignment, a disharmony, an imbalance with the healing. I move away from the healing because I attack it when it appears. And I look for a magician, a sorcerer, an energy manipulator to apply his energy and prevent me from contact with the healing. It erases the symptom, prevents me from contact with the cure, and without knowing it, I start to build up pressure karmically.
que es poder llevar a la purificación mi cuerpo etérico físico, yo no tengo que buscar evadirme de esa purificación, tengo que adherir y acompañarla. La otra vía de la cura es que si no estoy en condiciones suficientes, pero mi intención está presente, si no estoy en condiciones suficientes de alinearme con mi propio curador interno, puede ser que otro curador, un ser que tiene condiciones kármicas de curador.
The cause of an illness is present in a mechanism, in the vibratory entity called permanent atoms, which are in the aura and in the energetic field of the soul. The soul has vibratory field, a causal body, and the soul consciousness. Within that causal body is an entity, triune device, which is regulated by the law of karma and by the inner consciousness, which are three permanent atoms. One permanent mental atom, one permanent astral emotional atom, and one permanent etheric physical atom.
Un curador tiene que tener discernimiento porque no es un manipulador de energía. Porque un verdadero curador, cuando asiste a otro, no hace nada. Ni siquiera pone su voluntad diciendo, te voy a ayudar, te voy a curar. Nada.
Daniel continues, in one of these atoms, or a combination of them, there is present at what stage of an incarnation, or of this incarnation, I have to suffer from a specific type of pathology, a disease of whatever kind, even a deformation, a mutation, an accident. What I have experienced in the psychophysical field in these atoms is synthesized entirely. So when I live from a particular stage onwards, that which humanity calls illness is foreseen at that stage. It is there in the permanent atom that will emerge. So in the physical etheric atom, it says that at the age of 30, such a disease will arise as a complement to the karmic payment and the corresponding purification. Then, when it is foreseen and engraved, the permanent atom activates the illness in the physical etheric body. Activates the illness, and I begin to experience what I call illness. If a healer comes and manipulates the expression, encapsulates it, manipulates it, blocks it, I'll believe it that I am cured. But if in the corresponding permanent atom the pulsing starts to accelerate more and more, so that a purifying process is activated, it will be like a plug that under karmic pressure will burst. But karmically, the second or third stage of blocking is getting worse because the effect of blocking the healing generates potentization in the pressure. So looking for a healer is the worst thing we can do. There are two ways to work with the healing.
The first is by working directly with our inner healer, because our monada, spirit, is the one who can offer us the variables that correspond to the cure. Even in the first stage that we call illness, concerning the attachment, we have to understand what is happening to us, the gratitude we experience it, and the capacity to transform ourselves in the context of attachment and gratitude. That is the first thing to do, to seek inner alignment, inner attunement, and acceptance of the process.
So that my inner will can find in me the field where this process has to take place, with accompaniment, so that my consciousness circulates in the same direction that the cure circulates, which is to be able to lead the purification of my own physical etheric body. I do not have to seek to elevate the purification. I have to adhere it and accompany it. If I am not in a sufficient condition, if I am not able to heal myself on my own, if I am not in a sufficient condition to align myself with my own inner healer, with my own inner instructor, my inner life, it may be that another healer, a being who has the karmic condition of a healer, will participate, will assist me on behalf of my own inner consciousness. He becomes a reinforcement of what I cannot do yet directly on my own. The inner will, my inner healer, my monada, my inner consciousness is potentiated with the assistance of that other being who has the inner conditions karmically prepared to offer his accompaniment as a healer. When internally, through the intuitive path, it is revealed to him that he has to participate, because a genuine healer will never go against the law of karma. He will never manipulate the energy.
So what does all this mean?
Lo que hace un curador cuando percibe que él tiene que intervenir es reforzar silencio y quietud, sin nada pedir, sin nada esperar. Eso es lo que hace un curador. Entonces, ¿qué quiere decir todo esto? Que el camino de la cura es un camino de preservación de la voluntad de la ley que me ofrece la purificación bajo ese formato.
That the path of healing is a path of preservation, of the will of the law, which offers me purification in that format. It is simply that. That is the path of healing. I don't have to go looking for healers and look for what we are going to say. It is much more innocent and less toxic to go to the doctor and have him prescribe me an antibiotic than to go to look for a healer. Because the doctor is trained to tell you that if you have an angina, you should take a ciprofloxacin at 500 milligrams. It's more harmless than that, because he's not trying to manipulate anything. He's not promising you that he's going to get the demons out of you. Nothing. But the one promising you that he is going to liberate you, he's going to cure you, and says, I'm going to harmonize you. I will harmonize all your chakras. Run away from there.